What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and episode 10 of Astoria is actually on the record today, so let's go ahead and talk about this. Now, before I get into the reviews and all that stuff, I always kind of forget to do this at the beginning. Let's talk about my general feelings on the episode, starting with the animation quality, and I think it was, there's nothing to be said. I did not find a flaw one in today's episode. It was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I really had to go back and kind of re-criticize this episode because with the last episode, I kind of feel like we saw a major cooldown in the animation. And this time it really felt like, I don't know, maybe they sandbagged last week's episode for this episode or something. And I even mentioned last week that a lot of times with studios that are in these rushes to get these episodes out, sometimes they'll kind of, towards the end of the series be in such a crunch to get these episodes done, they make mistakes and they do silly stuff, and then they obviously, rectify it for the Blu-ray release or whatever. But I didn't feel that way this time around. I honestly... Now, I haven't given this a second, really detailed watch in true, honest fashion. I like to come in here with my initial thoughts and my number one feelings on this episode. But I didn't really have anything negative to say about the episode this week. I really hesitant to give it a 10 out of 10 because I feel like, as always, there's probably something that could be done. But I'm going to give it a 9.5 at minimum just because I really feel, dare I say, it's hard for me to give 10 out of 10. But nevertheless, great, absolutely fantastic episode, animation quality wise. As always, the sound design in this particular series has been just fantastic. So the sound is right up there as well. Story honestly did not go the way I thought it would. Once again, Amori is really good at setting up tropes and then throwing curveballs your way. So I just felt like the story was absolutely phenomenal. Is this the best episode in the franchise? Probably the most well constructed episode. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed others, but it's definitely up there. It's in the top 3 probably. Just based on its composition alone. And that said, we did finally have a couple things come to fruition this episode. So I guess we should just go ahead and get into the spoilers. So if you guys haven't already, drop a like, make sure you subscribe, stay up to date. And if you haven't watched the episode, good place to pause, come back after you've watched it, and then we'll talk about it. But this is your last warning. We are straight up just going to get into spoilers now. So, from the word go, we basically start off with Wingnall, the elfin dude, the one who won the tournament. And we see him struggling like crazy. Now, we found out last episode that he is considered, essentially, for lack of a better way to put it, defective among the elves. And he even mentions, he's like, look, and I had to, once again, I appreciate they went back and for the flashbacks they showed of the other elves, they showed Leafy and Filvis, who, by the way, they got name dropped in the credits on those episodes. But if you don't know who they are, go watch Danmachi. Highly recommended. Season 5's coming out in a couple weeks, so we'll be covering that here too. So, with all that said and done, pretty much old boy is just like, my magic is nothing compared to theirs. Like, his is just straight up an illusion. Like, we noticed last week, almost said yesterday, last week, where those monsters were just able to, cruise through it like it was nothing. He kind of insinuates that other mages, other elves, wouldn't have been able to do magic that would be far more effective, that would have masked their odor or whatever, and would have circumvented all of that. So, and would even manifest, basically, instead of, manifesting like fire, it would manifest it still as being hot and whatever. So, basically, he's just a very, very low-level magic user in the elven community, which, is to his detriment. That's just, it is what it is. A lot of people in this community find him to be very, very skilled and very powerful, but he's just not up to snuff according to what the expectations are. So a lot of self-pity from him, but once he kind of sees Will's like, cool, all right, well, get on your feet. I'll fend off monsters until you're good to go. And then from that point on, we got to get, like, everyone else is out there. They even met, I think it was Colette that mentions they've been in the dungeon for now, like, or been in floor 16 for like 16 hours. That's 16 hours straight with like no rest. So they're all getting fatigued. Like, this is crazy. And yeah, so basically Will's fending off these monsters left, right, and center, and Wingdoll's just kind of like, this is actually fairly impressive. Like, basically complete 180. Will gets all the respect in the world, and that kind of be that. They just kind of decide, okay, well, we've got to move on. Like, at this point, we got to go, right? And we actually get now some views of Colette, and I can't remember the other girl's name. And she was even a main focus of the last episode. But I'm terrible with names, and I do apologize. But old girl who put all this together, and Colette, and they're kind of having their own conversation. And Colette's like, hey, look, you're really strong. You're really this, you're really that. And she's just straight up like, you don't get it, do you? And they've dropped hints at this throughout the series. So once again, credit given to Amori for this. But she's like, this whole thing is just a show. The Magiavander, they are basically selected from us, like, at youth. Like, if you're going to ascend the tower, it's already done. They've made up their mind. It's not a question of if. It's not a question of when. It's a question of if, for like a better way to put it. So, yeah, she's like, you weren't chosen. I wasn't chosen. None of them were chosen. We're just kind of going through the paces now. We are not part of their world. As much as we would like to think we could be, and kind of fiddle with the idea of maybe one day we could be, it's not us. We are not them. So, yeah, big revelation there, because a lot of people in the series they're driving and striving for that role, even knowing that there's a small number of people that will attain it. Now we find out none of them will, or could. None of them are likely to. So I'll just say that, because I kind of feel like obviously they're setting it up for a big shift at the end. Spoilers if you haven't figured that out already. Protag gonna do protag things. Just, you heard it. I don't think that's a hot take or a fan theory. I think that's just, hey guys, be realistic. But if you would argue with me that the protag isn't gonna win his own series, definitely hash it out with me in the comments. I would love to hear your take on that. So, nevertheless, as we kind of move on to bigger and better things, we actually get Sion and now I can't remember the ice guy's name. I think I forgot it last week too. Julius. Anyway, we get the two of them. They're kind of like having their own little spat, and I love the fact that they even kind of mentioned it because Julius is like, dude, I want to drink water. I am thirsty. And Sion's like, do you think I'm made of water? I mean, obviously he didn't say it that way, but I'm like paraphrasing. And Julius is like, dude, I've got ice, you got fire. We could do this. And he's like, we're not wasting our magic on that. Where we are, and Sion's got a point, man. He's like, you got to conserve your energy. They've been in the dungeon for a minute. So, all said and done, he is right at the end of the day. They have to conserve their energy. They can't just sit there and, more ice, more fire, yes, distill some water and, set up a whole lab. That is not going to be a thing. So they're having their own little spat, and then, of course, a bunch of those high-level monsters just spawn in their room. And in fact, funny enough, that did happen to Will and Wingdoll too, is they've got these fire monsters that basically appeared in the room, and Wingdoll's like, hey, dude, You can't beat these with physical attacks. And they still resist magic on top of that. So we are in a bad state. Like, a real bad state. But nevertheless, obviously, Protag going to do what Protag do. Funny enough, we get a nice shot of Kiki actually doing something too for once. I say for once, but she is... I think kind of with that barrier she put up, she proves she can probably do more. But yeah, I get it at the end of the day. It is what it is. I'm not mad about it. I'm just picking on the series. So, they all mentioned like, hey, we've got to meet up with the other group. It's getting late. We've got to get together and make this happen. And what I absolutely appreciate here is you see a scene of Colette like dropping little items to kind of like, trace her way, and like the breadcrumbs essentially, but they're like little magic stones, or shiny stones at least. I assume they're magic. I'm presuming in this world that those are magic stones. I don't think that is a crazy assumption. Once again, fight me in the comments. Go for it. That's not my hill to die on, but whatever. If it is yours, comments. That was a regular shot. That was an amethyst. That was a this. That was like, you go, yeah, go wild. You know what? I am not a gemologist. I assume that's even the word for it, and I don't know for certain. But hey, if you are, comment section, that is your tool. Camera's mine. Probably a bad tool for me to have because I am an idiot. But nevertheless, let's jump back into the episode here. Enough derailing. So, essentially, we see Colette, an old girl, who, once again, I'm an idiot. I can't remember her name. I'm terrible with names. We see that there's like a footstep and somebody's approaching them. We're like, okay, but I recognized that foot immediately. We kind of knew something was going to happen. I did not think it would happen the way it did, though, because immediately in the next shot, we see Siona Julius meeting up with Will and Wingdoll, and you kind of like, okay, well, this is... Then who's that other person? Well, there's only a few other people in the dungeon. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, we did get a nice shot of the teachers saving all the students. And it almost, funny enough, it actually felt really well placed in the episode. And I didn't mention this, and I almost forgot to mention this. Because while Julius and Siona are having their problems with the monsters, on level 4, they're having problems with some very similar monsters. And you see... God, I can't remember his name now. The dude that's basically Snape for the series. And he just kind of is like, beheading magic, go! And it does. It's just, and just their heads are gone. And it's like, that's ominous. Is that? Oh, no. Okay, it's the good guys. Well, good guys using beheading magic. Okay, that's weird, but sure. And Werkner even is like flying around in this dragon, and they're like, they've mentioned like the skill to use a flying dragon of that speed in the dungeon is ludicrous. Like, that's kind of nuts, right? Like, this guy's insane. So, as they're going through the dungeon, you kind of like, now you know that they're safe up there, and they kind of talk about, okay, well, Kiki's connected to my my magic ball here, and she'll tell me where everyone is at. So they're chasing through the dungeon after that team. That team's kind of going through the dungeon doing their own thing. And we know that Siona and Julius have met up with our Protag and Wingdoll. Too many names. But nevertheless, as they're traversing through the dungeon, you come back and you see Colette and Old Girl, and they are now facing down that enemy that we met earlier in the series, a couple episodes ago. And this dude is completely insane. Like, the headless thing is like wearing another head and speaking through it, and keeps like swapping heads, which I thought was the greatest touch ever. And then at one point he just grabs one of the heads and just squishes it. And I love the fact he can communicate through like literal sign language. Like, he can write out words and then you hear it. But also he can use the head and speak through like that person's voice. And at one point they're like, that's a teacher, but why does he look all, oh, well, his head just came off. That's great. We're not completely screwed at all. And we get a little bit of information from them. So they're like, well, we're kind of here to make sure that that barrier that's stopping all the evil stuff up top, we're here to make sure that that barrier goes down. So we got our stuff to do. I guess we're going to have to kill you now because we did kind of do the evil villain thing and tell you our whole story. So, more beheading magic. Go. And as like the beheading magic is headed towards the duo, we see that it is deflected. And immediately I knew, like, this is Will's entry point. This is his moment, right? He comes in, slashes that magic with his magic elimination sword, and then just, you know, the Masamune sword, don't mess around. If you don't know what that is, read Marvel Comics. So, nevertheless, once you kind of get into all this, I'm a major nerd, guys. Just if you haven't picked up on it, I'm a huge nerd. So, nevertheless, once you kind of get into all this said and done, now there's 6 on 2, and they're like, well, we clearly have you outmatched, but we do kind of need to go. So we're going to go this way, and to make sure you don't follow us, here's that giant freaking monster that knocked you from floor 10 down to floor 11. And these barriers open up, and this thing just, and they're like, all right, see y'all, peace, we got evil things to do, right? And they just bolt. And now, going into episode 11, we have to deal with that. And I think if there's any indication how great the end of the series is going to get, is that we did not get a closing credits. I mean, we did, but we didn't. We saw them, all this stuff played out, and we saw the first few, like, you know, just interactions with that beast, the Grand Evil Duke. That's what they kept calling him, Duke. So old boy is Duke. So as they're wandering off, they're let the Duke boys handle it, and one of the Duke boys, and it's like, you know, it was not Daisy, I promise you. So they just kind of F off, and Duke's standing there like, you know, superhero landing style, and is like, hey, what's up? Round 2? And that's our whole closing sequence. We did not get a closing sequence. So I think this is like telling us that the next couple episodes are going to be insane. And it also tells me that this is not the final showdown. Those other 2 are basically going to be our main villains for at least the foreseeable future. Please let the series get picked up for a season 2. Please, 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 please. Now, this is where I'm going to ask you guys preemptively in the comments down below. Once the series is over, do you want me to cover the rest of the manga? I 100% will. I'm really stoked to. But do we legitimately want to talk manga? Because then what we can do is we can catch up with what's out and then start covering it as it drops, which I think would be super fun. If you want that to become a permanent feature of the channel, you guys 100% let me know. I'd be about that life. I would 100% be about that life. But you guys let me know what you want to see. It says, while this is YouTube, the you ain't me, the you is you. So, I am your genie, and you say, make me laugh. And I say, well, I'll give it my best shot. So, nevertheless, guys, make sure you guys do comment all those things down below. Just be civil, please, as civil as you can be about, you know, gemstones. I know that's your passion. I know everyone out there is like dying to correct me on what those actually were. But be civil. And I'll see you guys in the comments. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 11 because I am stoked. Take it easy, y'all. See you again soon. And we got to do the manga breakdown tomorrow. So I'll see you then.